Church of Christ of the Read and Commentary, The Dialogue of the Savior. In the first 3 videos, we came to understand the message of Christ to his disciples was there is both labor and good work that we can choose to do. Labor are all those things that bring about suffering, that goes against the grain of everything we were brought here to do. Good works is that seed that has been planted within you by the Mother Father from the very beginning. The very reason you are here, your accomplishment ready to sprout forth. Once you start to cultivate, become a husband, and become a wife, tend to your own garden, and raise many tall trees with many branches that allow many birds to feed and rest there. That's the very reason you have come here. Your goal is to tune into that truth, that seed. Listen to what the Father, Mother is telling you or guiding you to do. Your path, the straight and narrow. So Christ goes on to explain that the world will be continually tempting you either to go left or right. The right-hand path being that thing called dogma, essentially, whether it be by church, governor, peers, peer pressure, parents, pastors, friends, everybody trying to get you to go a certain way, and you must follow this way or else. There's always a punishment, a set of dictates, a law you must follow or else. That's the right-hand path. Now the left-hand path is continually reminding you that the only purpose of existing is to be enamored by the messenger and not to listen to the message. The messenger is that thing that always tells you it's about desire. It's about fulfilling our passions that are driven by our body only. We're only listening to whatever we want to be fed by the body, and that's it. There is no inner voice. There is no spiritual self. There is no real alignment by the soul. And narrow is the path that Christ talks about. There's neither left or right. The few follow, few find and follow. Christ has set forth that path for us in the embodiment of the man known as Jesus, through the conception of the mother known as Mary. Those two being in a spiritual sense analogous to Sophia and the Christ. Also, Christ talked about the governors, which is representing the authority of this universe, whether it be actual governors of this world, corporations, bosses, managers, people that use threat. They have power over your needs. You must do this for your basic needs to be met, or else will deprive you of all those needs. And so you find you're locked into that path. That's the governors. And a spiritual analogous would be the archons or the demiurge. Christ asks us not to be shaken, to be at peace and trust and have faith that you are here for a much larger purpose. When he had taken Mary, Judas, and Matthew up into the heavens, so they could see everything from afar, to get a larger general picture of how everything comes together. When they return, they begin to see and say to themselves, why do we worry ourselves about the wickedness of this world? As Christ says, don't worry what you will eat or what you will be clothed with. When he talks about that, he's talking about finding the fullness within you. Then he goes on to talk about answering to what does the realm beyond look like and what happens after we pass on? What is the resurrection? He begins to introduce the concept of the new garments, taking on the new garments, the flesh garment, and then the garment that we will receive, the translucent body, when we enter into the Holy Souls realm or into the pleroma. And in that case, that particular translucent body takes on a different nature, more soul-oriented and aligned with the spirit. And in this realm, we're more inclined by nature to be hylic, meaning more flesh-oriented. But in that realm, beyond, because we have reached fulfillment, we understand that there is a greater cause than being led by a set of dictates or laws, or abandonedly being at the whims of the lust of this world. Then we have sort of graduated. We have shown we understand, and thus we won't disrupt the realms beyond that are at a place of much more awareness and awakening and consciousness. So that's where we left off, and so when Mary hears all of this, she begins to understand essentially 3 main points that she takes away from what Christ talked about and what I just shared. And she brings it together into 3 phrases that are reminiscent of verses in the Bible. We're going to go to those verses, but let's read where we left off. Here it says, Then Mary responded after Christ had talked about those garments, and that it's not about you're doing those things to receive some kind of reward, but the reward is just the doing of it, the accomplishment of it, not all the acclaim or the fans or the fame or whatever that happens to be, the legacy, but rather it is the very doing, the completion, the task, the fulfilling, and the releasing of the importance of your physical body, that you are sacrificing that in order to bring about more light to this realm for those that will follow you. And so Mary summarizes into these three phrases. She says, Thus, with respect to the wickedness of each day, and then the next one, and the laborer is worthy of his food, and lastly, and the disciple resembles his teacher. She uttered these as a woman who had understood completely. Now notice, none of these contain the idea, the purpose of her as a woman was to make babies. This was extremely important because this is when she really understood. That wasn't even the reason she's here. That was just a mechanism that the demiurge uses so that we keep coming back. Mary's pointing out these three to summarize everything that she picked up from the Christ up to now. And Christ saw that she completely understood with these three phrases. So let's go through each one of these. What does she mean? She got it. So let's see if we can get it. So the first one, the wickedness of each day. Let's go to our first verse and chapter, and we're going to go first to Luke 6:39 through 41. So Christ also told them this parable. Can the blind lead the blind? Will they not both fall into a pit? The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher. Remember earlier Christ talked about it's the one that sees becomes the revealer. You're only going to be as aware as your teacher teaches you to be aware. So you're going to be only as capable of reaching a certain degree of awareness that your teacher helped you to become aware at that level, right? This is what Christ's talking about. So this is really what is being talked about here when Mary says the disciple resembles his teacher. Effectively, Mary is saying we must become as the Christ. We must recognize that we are like the Christ. The Christ is within us. We will reflect back to how well the Christ's message is. So if we become, let's say, 10 out of 10 aware, then that means the teacher was 10 out of 10 aware, because we could never reach 10 unless the teacher was also at a 10. This is basically what I'm receiving here. The disciple resembles his teacher. Mary is saying, I realize that my purpose is not about making babies or being a wife, but my purpose is to resemble the Christ. What is the Christ? Well, the Christ is the Word made flesh. It's the work that you've come here to do. And that's what Jesus the man came here to do, to become the first begotten Son of Christ, meaning the first to beget the true message of the Father, Mother, and who they really are, and to present it to the world. That was a very lofty goal for that Jesus man, but he accomplished it, and thus becoming the first Christ, Jesus Christ, and Mary becoming the mother of that Christ, Mary Christ. And so those two, Mary conceives of that concept, and then Christ then carries out by begetting it. And that's how the male and the female work together. And so that really is the very purpose, is for us to resemble the Christ. Otherwise, we make Christ's mission here in vain. Now let's move on to the next one. I'm using King James Version, Luke 10:7. Put it in context for the full chapter. So after these things, Christ appointed others 70 also, and sent them 2 and 4 before his face into every city and place whither he himself would come. Therefore he said unto them, The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he would send forth laborers into his harvest. So in other words, very few people get it. They're all coming for the food. They're all coming to consume, taking on the left-hand path. They're all coming. You ever have that thing where people show up to church because they're serving a free lunch? That's what Christ talked about here. Few of them actually coming because they're wanting to learn a message about why they're here and what is their calling in life. And so this is what Christ's saying. Go your ways, behold, I send you forth as lambs among wolves. Carry neither purse, nor scrip, nor shoes, and salute no man by the way. And in whatsoever house ye enter, first say, Peace be to this house. So don't carry any animosity with how people are going to receive your message. Just do it, share it, whatever your mission is. When we say message, we're talking about your mission. They come from the same word, mission, message. And if the Son of Peace be there, your peace shall rest upon it. If not, it shall turn to you again. In other words, if you come in peace, more like people are going to treat you also with respect and peace. If you come with some kind of intention, people are going to pick up on that you're trying to manipulate them, and that's going to come back against you. Verse 7, and in the same house remain, eating and drinking such things as they give, for the laborer is worthy of his hire. Go not from house to house. So who is the laborer in this analogy? Well, the laborer is that person that's doing his mission. Mary is recognizing that she need not worry, because the universe will provide for her. It will feed her. And this is where we get caught into the right-hand path, because we're so worried about our security that our needs are going to be taken away. Our needs are being threatened. And that's where we fall into the right-hand trap, as we think the world's going to punish us, and we therefore see God as the punisher. And that's where we then sell our soul, and we start to follow the right-hand path, instead of trusting that if we do whatever our calling is that we're here to do, then all else will follow. As Christ says, seek ye the things of the Spirit, and everything else will follow. It isn't first, do things that secure whatever, and then you try to, figure out how to make the Spirit work. So that's what this is. The labor is worthy of his food. It is Mary's moment. She recognizes that I don't need to worry. I just do what I was sent here to do, and the Mother Father will take care of me. The last one is Matthew 6:34 in this case. Let's go on down to here and keep it in context. Basically, don't worry, right? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows what you need when you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And so that's written in NIV, but if we go back, you can see it says the wickedness of each day. Thus we respect to the wickedness of each day. So what are we talking about? The wickedness, remember the wickedness is the flesh that is this realm. It's abundant, and we just respect it. We pay homage to it and reverence for it. This realm is going to give, and it's going to take. What we take from it will be taken from us. And so if we give, this realm will give back to us. So if we give of our message, then it will give back to us. So if we just respect that cycle, we may not agree with this realm. It is the nature of wickedness of this realm. But each day we live in this realm, and we pay homage, and we line up with its logos, and we respect it rather than try to fight it. This is the three things that Mary came to understand. And she began to see, it's my mission. I'm going to be taken care of. I'm going to become as the Christ. I'm not unworthy, but I'm worthy. And whatever I put out, I'm going to get back. The disciples said to him, what is this fullness? And what is this so-called deficiency you're talking about? And so Christ said to them, you are from the fullness, and you dwell in the place where the deficiency is. And this is completely topsy-turvy, because the Old Testament God and the old scribes of old kept talking about how man is wretched and he's deficient, paying no mind to the struggle of this universe and how it has entropy and it's just struggling to survive, and all the cruel aspects of nature, right? And we often forget it now because we get our homes and our heat and our electricity and food in the grocery store and think, it's very convenient. But without all of these trappings, it would be very difficult to live out in the elements. That is the deficiency. The very mechanism of this universe is feeding off of death. It's essentially life feeding off of death, death feeding off of life. That is the nature of this realm. And that is the deficiency, not you. You are the fullness. And lo, his light has poured down upon me. And that's the Christ. Christ is that light that is sustaining this universe. That is the perfect man. And Sophia is the body that allows for free will. Matthew said, tell me, Lord, how the dead die and how the living live. And so he wants to know, so why do they die? How does that even happen in the first place? And how do we even live? How do we even get animated? And how do we live forever, for that matter? And so Christ said, you've asked me about a saying. And so it says ... So we don't know exactly what he says here. Which eye has not seen? My guess is you're asking about something that nobody has really understood, nor have I heard it except from you. And so it's a question that Christ says, you're the first one to ask this question. And even if somebody asked in the past, they never really understood it. Maybe it never even occurred for them to ask this question. But you've asked a very deep question. Basically what he's saying, responding to Matthew. But I say to you that when what invigorates a man is removed, he will be called dead. So that's what Christ is saying. The reason people die is because they lose the connection to the seed. They lose connection to their purpose. And once they lose that, they begin to die. And when what is alive leaves what is dead, what is alive will be called upon. So what does it mean to be called upon? In other words, when you awaken to what you were sent here to do, and you begin to line up with that, you come alive. And you abandon your death sentence. And you feel called. You feel called to that enlivens you. That causes you to move, to be at rest internally and in motion externally, because you're moving now towards some goal. And that is the very thing that's calling you forward. And when what is alive leaves, what is dead, what is alive will be called upon. You see how that works? That's when your name is called in the book of life. That's what it's talking about in Revelation. It's not a literal throne you go to and God with his big, fingers is thumbing through each dusty page and seeing if your name's there and you go to hell over here. No, it's saying that you're in the book of life when your name's called. And when you come alive, you get called. Judas said, why else for the sake of truth do they die and live? So Judas has a moment then. He says, so basically you're telling us the only reason we're living is in honor of truth. That's the only reason we're living. Is that what you're saying? Is that the only reason people die? Because of lack of truth? And the reason they live is because the more they have truth, the more they're able to live? And so Christ said, whatever is born of truth does not die. What is born of woman dies. Why is that? Think about that for a moment. Literally saying that it's because we go through the birthing process. When we talk about born of woman, we're talking about literally woman given birth. Why do those people die? Because we go back into ignorance and we have to start all over. And we are not able to have enough gnosis or awareness. We don't arrive to enough awareness quickly enough to sustain the body. And it deteriorates before we catch up, or gnosis catches up to sustain it. And then we make all these mistakes that just bludgeon the body, and it can no longer contain the spirit. Because knowledge does not reside in ignorance. It resides in innocence. Now, why then does it sustain itself in a baby? Is because it's being sustained by nature that's keeping that baby alive. And the knowledge of the mother and father is feeding it, okay? The knowledge is keeping things alive. That's it. Without knowledge, where there's ignorance, there's death. Where there's knowledge, there's life. It's that simple. Mary said then, tell me, Lord, why have I come to this place? Have I come here to profit or to forfeit? Oh, what is she asking here? She's saying, in other words, kind of when I'm listening to you, it sounds like you're saying that I've got two choices, that I need to give up this body. I just need to forfeit everything. That's what it sounds like you're telling me. Or I need to, just go around and try to collect everything, get something out of this realm. And so the Lord said, you make clear the abundance of the revealer. What is he saying? It doesn't even sound like he's answering her, right? It sounds like he's avoiding answering her because Mary gave her a multiple choice, him an A or B. Which one is it? Well, Christ says that you make clear the abundance of the revealer. So he's basically telling her it's neither of those. You're here because you're here to reveal truth and to show that that is where abundance lies. It doesn't lie in the profiting. It doesn't lie in you forfeiting everything in the universe. It's neither of those. It isn't you're coming here to gather as much stuff as you can. You ever see that t-shirt, that saying, it says, you're not taking anything with you? Well, okay, that's that profit part. That Christ is saying, well, that doesn't amount to anything. And Christ is also not telling you to be destitute and have a poverty mindset and forfeit everything. He's not saying that. He's saying there is abundance, and it's when you find the revelation. That's the revelation. When you understand how rich you are, that you're a son and daughter of God, that Christ is within you. You are the Christ. You are the Sophia, the mother, the Mary. You are the one that conceives the Christ, and you are the one that makes the word flesh. So whatever that mission is, you're the one that's revealing that to the world, and by doing that, that's where the abundance is. You're bringing more abundance to this world, bring more light to this world. Mary said to him, Lord, is there then a place which is blank, ... so we don't know what she's saying here, or lacking truth? So maybe she's saying, is there a place where people are just completely ignorant? Does that place even exist? Getting this understanding that ignorance or evil or the lack of light is just an illusion. Does it even exist, she's asking. And the Lord said, the place where I am not. That means Christ is everything. What is Christ? Do you remember? Christ is the first perfect man. It is the first thought of the Father. It's the first thing Barbello asked accompany the thrice male, the three gifts that she gave that first perfect man, Adamus, that then equipped the man with everything that he would ever need, which is the feminine that he carry with him, the consort. Those two working in consort together, that is everything. And there's nothing else outside of that. And everything else outside of that is just an illusion. And us all struggling to find our sense of self-worth because we can't believe that God already loves us just the way we are. Mary said, Lord, you are fearful and wonderful, and ... those who do not know you. I don't know exactly what she's saying here. My guess is, and it's unfortunate for those that do not know you. That's sort of what I'm guessing. And I'll just read this last one here because there are quite a bit more here in this book. We'll finish maybe in the next video. Matthew said, why do we not rest at once? So why do we have to go through all this? Why are we having to be burdened with this? If God loves us just the way we are and the goal is just to go back to La Paloma anyway, then why don't we just cut to the chase? Why do we not rest at once? And Christ said, when you lay down these burdens, okay, well, what is he saying? He says, well, the only reason you're not doing it is because you're taking it upon yourself to feel that you have to earn God's love. You came here because you believed that you had to earn God's love. Remember Sophia at the beginning, she asked the Father, she said, I want to be like you. And that created the anomaly because she didn't recognize that she was already like the Father. She was equal to the Father. She was part of the Father. She was self and same time herself, but yet she was also the Father. But because she didn't see that, that brought about the anomaly that we live in this realm. And that's where everything led to eros and enamoring the messenger instead of hearing the message of love. That created a burden that we all carry with us now. We're all fighting over each other to be loved. And so when you lay down this burden, that's when you rest. And because we don't know how to lay that burden down, that's why we don't just rest at once. That's basically what Christ is saying here to Matthew. Matthew said, how does the small join itself to the big? Matthew's recognizing okay, I understand what you're saying. It seems like a lot of us are struggling with ourselves. So how are we ever going to be able to ascend to the level of those who have reached, this self-love and being able to accept that God loves them just the way they are and that they're acceptable? How do we even join with these type of people? And Christ said, when you abandon the works which will not be able to follow you, then you will rest. So what is he saying? Remember we talked about this in the last video. Your mission isn't to go out and to try to create lots of followers. And it's very apropos in today's world with TikTok and everything. That's not the goal. When you do that, you're going to find most of the time, if that's your goal, it's going to fail. Your goal is to do your work. And that means when you do your work, the followers will come. And we're talking about, not talking about TikTok per se, but we're talking about the reason you're doing your work is to earn that you're lovable. And it's kind of interesting, but by doing that, you then send a message that others should love themselves. Whatever it is you're doing, and people think about, well, am I supposed to go out and become like a prophet or a pastor or preacher or a nun? Well, those are ways to do that, but there are many other ways to do it. Writing a book, singing a song, sharing a kindness with a homeless person, or becoming an engineer because you're trying to make the world a better place that makes it better for others, that then feel like, oh, there's hope in this world. All right, so there's many different reasons or ways we all come here, different mission. See, so you need not worry. You're going to know it by whatever brings you peace. Doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult, and there's going to be a lot of work to do, right? It's going to try you. This realm tries you by fire. But when you cleanse your mind with the waters of life, you cleanse it of that worry, of all of that, and you just trust and faith that if you just follow that path, you're going to be taken care of, and everything else will follow, including those that will follow you. And when you abandon the works which will not be able to follow you, in other words, you stop trying to get people to follow you that don't really matter, like you're trying to get people to like you, in other words, or be agreeable, whether it's your pastor or it's your parents or your peers or some politician or some bunch of people on TikTok or whatever it happens to be. If it's not organic to who you are, then it's going to be not. And you're not going to be resting on the inside. You're not going to be at peace. It's going to basically destroy you from within. All right, we're going to stop there, and we'll pick back in the next video where Mary says, I want to understand all things just as they are. So Mary sounds really excited here, and she's an exclamation point, because now she's getting it's all coming together, and she wants to understand, can you just put it all into one little package for me? Because it's a lot to have to absorb. Can you just summarize it and tell me just how it all comes together? All right, so we'll pick up on that question Mary presents to the Christ in our next video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, have a blessed day.